All right, so today we'll start with the fonts today. Wednesday we got through the live templates, kind of getting it cut ready, adding some rhinestones to that, and then we ran it through the pricing calculator and the advanced pricing calculator, and then we made the order forms based off that too. So today we're going to get into the fonts. We're going to cover some vector fonts, rhinestone fonts, just kind of understanding the differences and the kind of some of the rules that go with the rhinestone fonts, and then we'll get into more of the mock-ups too. So last class we at the end we briefly went through the mock-ups. So we have that, we have the mock-ups creator, and we still have the magic tab. So I'm assuming there's probably going to be a part 4, just because I don't think we're going to get through all those today. So probably Tuesday of next week, we'll continue with 4 just to kind of finish off the basics of the design wizard. So at any point, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And as I see those come in, I'll try to answer as many as possible. All right. So now you should have some basic rhinestone fonts just with like the purchase of the software. You kind of get like some starter fonts and designs. With that, I believe it's an installer though, so you're not going through, purchasing an individual font or anything like that. But with some of the rhinestone fonts, you'll notice that it has 2 versions. It has the RF and an SF version. All right, so we're going to talk about that first. So up top here on our design wizard, we have our 2 arrows. That's going to open up your font wizard, or the font part of the wizard. And under find font, we can type TRW, and then it will list all the fonts that we've installed. All right. So there's a couple things when we're working with rhinestone fonts. Not all of them have upper, lowercase, and numbers, and other characters like question mark, exclamation mark, any of those type of things. So it's really important and I'm gonna pull this over just so you can kind of see it on the website too. Have you guys purchased like any rhinestone fonts, maybe individual rather than like a full artwork pack or font pack? Tons. Okay. So the big get the all-star ones weekly. All right, perfect. So the thing with those fonts, and getting a couple packs to get started with is definitely helpful. But if we're ever looking for like a certain style or size that's gonna work, one of the biggest things with the rhinestone fonts is they're not gonna be able to just size it like a vector font. So I can't just choose any rhinestone font, say I want it 10 inches wide, and have it done. It doesn't work like that with the rhinestone font. So we'll go to font types here just real quick, and I'll kind of just walk you through this. That actually click. Oops, clicking too much. All right, so when you go to fonts here, you can select Rhinestone Fonts. And then the next part it's going to show you is the Rhinestone Font height, right? So when we drop down here, you'll see all the different sizes that these fonts are at. So we'll have below or less than an inch, between 1 and 1.5, 1.6 and 2, 2.1 and 3, and over 3. So usually a good rule is the taller the font is, the less characters you'll be able to type out to make it fit correctly on a t-shirt. So if I scroll down here, you'll see some of the examples that we have. So our font here, the TRW Hula Hula, is 2.3 inches wide. So I'm going to select Quick View so we can see this a little bit more. Now this font, there's a couple things that this image is going to tell us about this font before we purchase it. One, it's only going to be what you see. So I know it's kind of like a combination of upper and lowercase the way this font is, but it's pretty much only uppercase. Some of the letters look lowercase, but that's just the style of the font. It's pretty much all uppercase. So this font isn't going to include lowercase. It's not going to include numbers with it. It's just going to be the characters you see here. So A through Z, that's all you're going to get with this Hula Hula 2 color, and it's saying right here that it's 2.3 inches tall. So all of our Rhinestone like fonts, the images that you see, unless it's like specified that it might be, some of our fonts have a combination of stones, so 10s and 6s, or you know, two different sizes. This, if it doesn't like specify that, it's going to be based on SS10 size stone. So down here we have the word lava. So what this is telling me is that the word lava is 2.3 inches tall. We got that already pretty much from the title. But these 4 characters are 10.4 inches wide. So if I try to, you know, if I like this font and maybe I want it to say baseball, or, you know, maybe a last name on a t-shirt, the 4 characters, you'll see LAVA, is already 10.4 inches wide. So if I have the word baseball, which is 8 characters, that's going to put my font almost double the size that we have here. So for most apparel or, you know, garments that we might be pressing to, that's not going to fit because it's going to be over like 20 inches wide, right? We kind of understanding what I'm saying here. So if I'm looking for a font that's going to, that I could write the word baseball out, or a, you know, a certain word, I want to look at the example first so I know if it's going to fit for what I'm going to use it for. So we'll close out of this one. And so now we have, let's check out this example here. Yeah, so we had a question. So that font could type out the word girl. Yeah, so if you typed out the word girl with this font that we were just looking at, it's going, the, you know, the I might be a little bit thinner than some of like the AV, that, you know, the characters in there, but it's going to be pretty, any 4-letter word is going to be pretty close to the word, or to the size 10.4. So it might be like 9 or 9.5 because, you know, that I and girl might be a little bit thinner than the other characters, but for the most part it's going to be pretty close to that kind of 2.3 by 10.4 inch wide dimensions. Any 4-letter word or 4 characters would be pretty close to that. So this would only, you know, we can only do so much with a design like this, unless it's going across a larger banner or a larger placement where maybe, you know, if I have 24 inches to work with on a certain like garment or, you know, bag or anything like that, then this would like, you know, be a great font to have because I want it to be bigger. I want it to stand out. But for a t-shirt, I probably won't use this too much because, you know, I can only use 4 or 5 characters, and then I'm going to be almost maxing out my size. So here we have another font. You can see this one's 1.6 inches tall. If we're looking at the image, you can see in this one, the image shows uppercase, lowercase, and numbers, right? So this font, if I purchase this one, it's going to give me upper, lowercase, and numbers in this font. So the first one I showed you was only uppercase. You're only going to get uppercase with that one. Next, at the bottom, you'll see 1.6 by 8.7 inches wide. So the word land shark, 8 or 9 characters, is going to be roughly about 9 inches wide. So that's, you know, we have a question, can you do them vertically? Yes, you can. It might be a little bit different, but yeah, you can definitely make these like vertical if you want. And I'll show you that once we get back to like the fonts. So if I wanted baseball or basketball in this font, well, that's still gonna keep me probably close to anywhere from 8.5 to 10 inches, 10.5 inches wide. So this font would probably work a little bit better for allow it to be used on like more t-shirts or different garments like that, where I can have bigger words. So that's just when we're looking at fonts and stuff like that, the packs are nice because it just gives you a collection of them. But if we're looking for something specific, we want to make sure that we purchase we want to make sure the sizing is something we can work with. All right, so any questions about sizing or anything with the Rhinestone fonts? What you see in these images is what you get. So you'll if you're going through these, you'll notice some have this one here is just uppercase and numbers, so there's no lowercase. This one, upper and lower, no numbers. So there's gonna be different, not every font is listed the same way. Alright, so this one here is upper and lowercase, upper and lowercase, upper, lower, but no numbers. So we just want to pay attention to the image that you see here. And then, so here, front page, this font, the word front page is 11.6, and that includes a space in there too. So, this is another good one that if I want, a still nice little font that can pretty much still write out a lot of those, sports or activities we might be doing, this would be another, font that would fit inside that. All right, so let's go back to Corel. So when you purchase a font in the download area, you're going to, in the download area, it's most likely going to have an SF and an RF version. Now, if it's a script font, sometimes it will only have the RF, or if it's like just a simple font, it might just have the RF. You do want to download both of them, but you're probably going to be using the RF version the most. We have a question. What is the standard size or max size of an image or font when designing a t-shirt or a hoodie? So we don't really have a standard or max size, because it's gonna vary. So and you mentioned a t-shirt or a hoodie. So most of the times a hoodie is going to be a little bit bigger than a t-shirt. You're going to have more room to kind of fit on there. Also, when you get into different t-shirt brands, their sizes are so different. So trying to think, Next Level, I think it was, their large is almost closer to like Gildan's medium. So it's kind of hard to, what we always recommend is if you have the t-shirt, or hoodie, or, whatever garment you have, if you have it in front of you or anything like that, you just kind of want to take a ruler or tape measure and just kind of measure the middle area. So you maybe come in an inch and a half on each side, and that's kind of your image size that you'd want in there, or font size. So most of our designs, when we create them, are probably closer to like 9 to 10 inches wide for more of the adult size t-shirts. But there's no, like, it's hard to get like an exact standard size, just because there's so many different brands and they all have a little bit different sizing and stuff like that. So a large 9.5 might look really good on one, but then you go to a Next Level and it runs a little bit smaller, and now it looks too big on that. So that's where it's nice with any type of vector design, because you can just resize it to fit the shirt. So if you're working from adult smalls to 3x, you can just, maybe cut one at 8 inches wide, one at 10, and then one at 12. With the rhinestone design, you're not going to have that luxury because you don't want to cut templates out for, well, one, it's going to be hard to resize. You'd have to actually like change the design around to get it all those different sizes. So you don't really want to have to do that. So we'll, that's where it gets just a little bit, we don't really give out a standard size or anything like that. All right. We had a question. If you want to make it larger, can you use the respace tool if necessary? Yes, you technically can, and we'll get it. I'll show you how we'll resize if we really need to a little bit. It's not going to always look good though. So yes, technically you can use the respace tool, but that doesn't mean it's going to look good. All right, so let's go through just kind of how you'll see some of these rhinestone fonts appear or look like in our font preview. So if we look here, we have our TRW 12 rounded RF, and we have our 12 rounded SF. So I'm going to click on the RF version, and right away I look at this font preview. All right, so this preview is pretty much telling us what kind of characters the font has. Does it have upper, lower? Does it have both? And how we need to type those out. So normally it should say like, this is an older font, so it's going to be a little bit different, but most of the time if it doesn't have an upper, you would just see, so that one. So you'd see something like this where it just says upper and lower, but not, the other version would be the rhinestone one. So both of these fonts that I'm clicking on, TRW 12 and TRW 6, it's actually uppercase, but we have to type it in lowercase to be able to view it. So again, these are some older fonts. Most of them now, if it's just either upper or lower, you can type them both ways. It'll be the exact same. But some of the older ones are just a little bit different, and we need to make sure we're paying attention to this font preview. So I'm going to type in all uppercase, okay? So I'm going to just write out rhinestone. So if I select this font now, see how my characters go away? Yeah, so there's technically no lowercase letters for this font, but to be able to see the characters in this font, we actually have to type in lowercase. So if I write it all out in lowercase and then select this font, it's going to make it the uppercase letters so we can actually see them. But if I switch this to uppercase, it's going to disappear and not show up. So I know it's a little confusing with some of the older fonts and how they're created, but pretty much if you just look at this font preview, it will tell you whether to type it in lower or uppercase. All right, so there's TRW 16 Western. This, when we look under the font preview, has the word upper and the word lower. So this font, this preview is telling me that this has all uppercase letters and all lowercase letters. So I can type it all lowercase and it will still show up. I can type it title case. I can do all upper, and this font still is going to show up for me. All right, TRW 24. Again, it's an uppercase letters, but we have to type it in lowercase to see it. So you see how there's no text here that says upper, or part of a text that says upper. So that's what we're looking for in this font preview. So looking back at this Western font here, we have two different versions. We have the RF and the SF. So the top is the RF, the bottom is the SF. So what the difference is in these two is usually so the RF used to stand for just like a regular font, And then we used to carry the material sticky flock. Now it's turned to magic flock. So the SF is like sticky, used to be sticky flock. So this is what, both are going to be cut out, but this version already has the boxes around it. And the way these are set up, let me put the spacing between this, is each individual letter already has its own cutout template. So the SF version, if I wanted my text, let's just say I wanted this to say like cowgirl, I could write it this way, or I could do all uppercase, whatever I wanted. And then I have the same version in my my SF. So with the SF version, most of the times, if we're ever going to use the SF version, it would be to cut the entire alphabet at once. So I would just write out all my letters through the alphabet, and then I would cut out all of them so they're individual. That way, once these are all cut out, I could mix and match these and line them. They're all just going to line up perfectly, and I could write out whatever word I wanted to. And usually when you cut out the SF version, when you cut them all out, you're going to want to duplicate some of the letters too. So some people just cut the whole alphabet twice, but like the S's, the M's, the E's, stuff. There's a couple characters, T's, N's, that sometimes will get used more than once in a word. So a lot of times we'll try to cut multiple letters out of some of those more popular letters or more used letters. This version here, we would just write cowgirl and just make a template around just this one word. Alright, so most of the times we'll use the RF version and just create our own template once we're done. But let's say we're going to a tournament or an event, and I want to be able to put numbers or names on the back of shirts, and I want to do it on site. Well, I don't want to have to be able, let's say a team comes up to me and gives me all their last names. I don't want to have to write out a bunch of different kids' names, because that's going to be a lot of flock that I'm wasting, and I'll probably never use these last names again, right? So if that's the case, if I was doing something on site, that's a time that I'd probably want to pre-cut my alphabet. That way when I'm there, I can just take my letters and rearrange them for each last name. Right. So does that make sense of when we would use kind of the RF versus the SF? All right. So next, we need to get into sizing our rhinestone designs. All right, so anytime we're using rhinestone fonts, when I type this in, on my screen here, you can see how it looks pretty small right now, right? So most of us, what we want to do is we want to make that bigger. So we'll just kind of extend this box out like that, all right? Which is normal and okay. Next, what we'll see sometimes when we're working with rhinestone fonts is to resize it, we might pull it a little bit down this way, and then a little bit this way, and then maybe this way, maybe bring it up that way. So right then, that's gonna, because the way we just resize this, it's gonna not work correctly. So anytime we're working with a rhinestone font, Again, this is where it differs from a vector font. If I want to make this bigger, I need to pull from one of the corners. So top left, top right, or bottom left. I need to pull from one of those corners so it adjusts the height and width at the same time. So again, if I come in here and I move this in this way a little bit, that just messed up my whole Rhinestone font, and when I go to resize it, it's not going to work anymore. So now also too, you can, when it's a smaller font like this, you technically can come up top here and you could type in any number. Now if I wanted this font to be 10 inches wide, just because I hit 10, and make sure if you do it this way that your lock ratio is locked. That way, again, it will adjust the height and width at the same time. Hey Valerie, you didn't miss much. We're just getting going on the differences in like Rhinestone fonts versus vectors and stuff like that. Alright, so just because I just resized this to 10 inches does not mean that this font is, ready to cut or anything like that. So you can see if I click in here, I can still edit this font. So the next step with the Rhinestone font is hitting the resize button. So right up top here you have your stone size. This middle button underneath it is the resize. And what this will do is make all of the circles in your font perfect SS10 circles and resize them all to make sure that they're that size. So I have my Rhinestone font selected. I come up top to resize, and it's going to pop up, not all stones are 0.135. Would you like to replace? So we're going to hit yes. All right, so it actually made this font a little bit bigger now. So you can see right now it's at 12.864 inches wide by 2.2 inches tall. This is the word rhinestone. When I'm using this font here, I can't, really make it any different size from this unless I change the actual size of my stone. So right now we're all in SS10. So if I click on any one of these stones, you'll see up top here the dimensions of that stone are 0.135 by 0.135, the same number that my SS10 is equal to right here. So every circle in here is all the same size. We had a question. Is there a YouTube video that goes over all the different Rhinestone TRW offers, like sizes, colors, difference in Korean? I don't know if there's one that actually hits with all of the different, like our Korean versus our stone cut or diamond cut. I forget what they're actually called, but I don't think there is one like that. That's something that we can probably create though. All right, so with our rhinestone, is there or no? So if you mess up the stone sizes and make them oval, when you hit resize, we'll make all the circles the same size. So that's where I was talking about with our font or with our text here. So let's write out the word bling. And what is this, TRW6? So we have to go to lowercase to be able to see it. So this is where I was talking about. Right now, this is the size of our font. And in reference to our page, it's really small. So if I accidentally pull from the side here and then make this taller this way, if I go to resize, so you can see now these are, odd shaped circles, but it's still in a text format. If I try to resize this now, see how it won't prompt, do you want to resize all to 0.135? So what this does is now, like, it's all welded or like together, but they're not individual stones. and if I smart fill one of them so we can get the dimensions of it, we're at 0.148 by 0.151. So it doesn't actually resize it to the correct size or anything like that. That's where you're going to get your error. So with the word bling, we, instead of pulling it out that way, we would have to pull it out from the corner. And again, it doesn't matter if you can even leave it at that size. The minute you hit resize and yes, it's going to turn all those into SS10 stones and give you like the height and width that this would be at. So by resizing it to make it larger like this, I can make it, you know, bigger than the word here. But again, just because I make this 12 inches wide, the minute I hit resize, it's going to go to the actual size this font was created at. So 2.2 inches tall, and the word bling is about 6 inches wide. So there's really no way to, you know, change the size or dimensions of this word unless I were to go to 6s, which is a smaller size stone. That would make it 1.6 inches tall by 4.2 inches wide. Or I could go to 16s, which would make it 7.6 inches wide by 2.8. Now, most of us are probably used to working with 10s, so they're the easiest, most common. So, you know, we might have to order 6s or 16s if we, you know, our customer really wants this font, but at 12 inches wide or almost 13 inches wide, it's too big. So we have to go to 6s, and that moves it to 9.2. Yeah, so even if you resize the word, the resize button's only going to work correctly if you size it proportionally. So you either have to pull it from the corner or you have to come up top here and make, again, your lock ratio's got to be locked, because if it's not, if you make the, 10 inches wide, it's going to stretch it like this. So it needs to be locked so it automatically adjusts the height with it. So is there no way to recover ovals back to circles? Been there when you cut your stones and don't fall in them. So it's not easy to get back. Like once you resize, so if I make this all 10s now, if I, decide to stretch this at all this way or any way, if they're not perfect circles anymore, one, I can just, retype my design so you can see now they're not perfect circles. They're 0.13 by 0.15. I can highlight my design, and next to the resize, we have a button that's replace. So what this does is it replaces every, object or circle in there to whatever size you have selected. So if I hit replace all, that will now turn all these stones back to 0.135 by 0.135. But it keeps the spacing of your design there. So let's say, to kind of exaggerate that point, I'm going to make this a lot bigger. So right now, just because I made this bigger, these circles now are 0.227 by 0.227. So they're not, if I try to brush in SS10s into this, there's going to be a lot of wiggle room because this circle's so much bigger than our SS10 size stone. Now, so this is what someone was kind of asking earlier, could you hit the replace all button and resize it? And yes, you can, but watch how this works. See how much space now is in between each stone? So these are all back to SS10 now. But because we enlarged it so much, there's so much space between each stone. Now, what you can and what we've seen done before. It takes a little bit of time and it won't save this font. But I kind of have a general, layout of this font. Now the spacing in between, this is where it gets a little bit hard to try to fit rows possibly in between. But I could technically get rid of all those stones there, select these two here, do an edit and fill between two, and then that will bring that, back to the way it's supposed to be set up. And then once I have one row done, I can kind of copy that, move it over, and actually I can just use the copy selected and make a couple rows that way. But it's, then you have to kind of get into all these different rows coming in here. Like the block letters are nice and easy to do, but like the inside the B or an S or even like the G in here, it's going to be a lot of work. But you can do little things like that to possibly help fix it, but it's going to be a lot of work. Yeah, that would definitely take a lot of time. So that's where I was getting with, at the beginning when we were showing the different fonts. That's why it's really important, like if we're looking at a certain font, we want to pay attention to our example word here. Because if I'm looking to have the word rhinestone or bling, well, this is, if I want, a 5-letter word, I have, more options to work with because I can go with a larger font. I don't need it, it's okay if it's a little bit bigger. But if I'm trying to fit like a 10 or 12 letter or character word, I have to be more specific with the font I'm going to use because not all of them will fit in that range. All right. So, I know someone asked earlier, I had one time where it resized. Most were 10s, but some were 16. So, there are a few fonts that we have. You'll see this one right here, TRW02 script 2 size. So, this has upper and lower. We can see in the font preview. So, I'm going to write the word rhinestone in title case. I'm going to select this font here. All right. So again, look how small this is coming in, right? So we want to be able to see that a little bit bigger. So again, my choices to be able to see this big, make it easier to see, is I pull from the corner, and that's any corner. So it can be the left side, top left, top right, bottom right, or I come up top here and I just make it like 10 inches just so I know it's going to be a little bit bigger. Does it matter? Will that reflect, though, the overall size of my design just because I resized it to 10 right now? Does that mean it's going to hold that 10 inches wide? Exactly. So, no, that has nothing to do with it. So, when I hit resize now this is where it gets a little bit different because this is a 2-size font. You can see we have one size here and the other size here. So it's a 2-size font. The way these fonts work is I'm going to still hit the Rhinestone resize button. It's going to say not all stones are 0.13. Would you like to replace? So 95% of the time we're going to hit yes. The fonts that are a 2-size rhinestone design or 2-size rhinestone font, we're going to hit no. And what the software is going to take from that is the larger size stones in this design will now be SS10. And the smaller size rhinestone will be the next size down, which would be 6s. So it's going to keep that look, but our larger size, again, would be 10 because we have 10 selected here. And the smaller size stone would be 6s because that's our next size down. So there's probably, a handful of these fonts. So nothing changed when I hit no. All that is telling the software that if I had this design and I hit resize and I hit yes, the smaller stones would also be turned into SS10s, and then my design's going to look like that. So you see how I have all these overlapping stones now? So the software knows when it's a 2-color stone like that. So if I wanted 10s and 16s, I would drop this down. 16s now would be my my larger stone, and 10s would be my smaller. So I would make 16s here, hit resize, no. And now these are all SS10s, and these are my SS16s. Most of the fonts are going to be just when we hit resize, we're going to hit yes. So we click this one here, it'll just be yes, and that will make them all the one size. All right. So what the button does to the right here, most of the time you probably won't be using this button and actually these are all 16s, that's why it looks a little bit bigger. Most of the time we're not going to be using this button too much, but let's say, right now, and let's go back to 10s. So our design is 12.8 inches wide. I have a little bit of room between these stones that I might be able to make this, maybe I want it closer to 12.5. So I'm going to type 12.5 in here. Now this is after I've already hit resize. So if I hit 12.5 before I hit resize, it's not going to help me at all because once I hit resize, it's going to go back. So right now, I just resized this from like 12.8 to 12.5. What that does though is it changes my circle size when I do that. Because when I make it smaller, all these circles are going to get smaller. So now we're at 0.131 by 0.131. Alright? So what I can do now is highlight this, and I want to replace every stone that's in there, so all those 0.131s by 0.131s with back to 0.135s. So instead of hitting resize, I'm going to hit replace. And now none of my stones are like overlapping or anything like that. I'm still at 12.5 inches wide though. And all my circles are back to 0.135 by 0.135. So if it's small adjustments like that, and I actually have a little bit of room still with these, how they're spaced. So I might, let's say I go down to 12 even. Alright, again, when I click on these, now all these circles are 0.13 by 0.13. We want to get them back to 0.135. So I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to hit replace, not resize at this point. So when they're already into rhinestones, we use the replace, not the resize. Alright, so now when I kind of look through here, my spacing looks good. It's a little bit tighter, probably can't get too much smaller than this. But we went from 12.8 inches wide close to 12 inches wide now, or pretty much 12 inches wide now. So we almost took like an inch off our design just from respacing it and then using, or just by resizing it and then using the replace button. So that's kind of how that's set up. Now again, if I made this 11 inches wide, and then I come up here and I hit the replace, these stones are going to be touching and way too close together. So they're not actually touching, but they're really close together. Some are actually overlapping. So we can't make like dramatic changes when it comes to the rhinestone fonts, but maybe like half an inch to an inch depending on the font and how it was created, how much spacing between each one, we can get rid of, or we can kind of get away with little adjustments. If we want bigger adjustments, we have to switch to an entire different stone size. So we can go from 10s to 6s or 16s, 10 to 16, something like that. Yeah, so resize changes size of word into usable stone sizes. Replace changes stone size. Yeah, so pretty much our first step would always be, so what this is gonna, the resize button is gonna do a couple things for us. I'm trying to go back to where it's an actual font. So when it's an actual font, that's when you can come in and change it from the word rhinestone to bling. The minute you select this resize button, that's taking the word bling from a font into like a cuttable rhinestone template. So we're gonna hit yes. It's gonna resize these. They're all 0.135, perfect. At this point, if I try to click into this or change the word, it's just gonna select the individual stones, and you know I can no longer go back and change this from bling to, you know, rhinestone or any word I want. It's converted. It's just a bunch of circles now. All right. The replace is, you know, if I need, maybe I want this just a little bit bigger, I can then hit replace, and that's just going to make sure these are all back to the correct stone size. So until you pretty much hit resize with the fonts, you won't be hitting replace because it wouldn't do anything. So next, if this is my word that I'm ready to cut, next step would be going to our templates. And depending on what type of vinyl cutter you have, if you're working with like the Cricut or Silhouette, you can go ahead and use the Stone 2+ cut. If you're working with like Graphtec or Roland's, you can actually get away with the vinyl overcut feature. But you would just, let's just do the Stone 2+ cut. You would just left click, and this is going to create a template for you. So this yellow box with these circles inside of it now, that's going to be your cut template that we would send over to our cutter. All right. So remember, we have the RF and SF version. The SF version, we wouldn't have to create templates because they're all created with them already. We still need to resize our SF templates to the correct stone size, but otherwise they already come with their own. Oh, Matt went live during my live. Oh man, Roseanne, you gotta yell at him for me. Tell him I'm gonna go live during his Monday live next time. All right. So, any questions with our Rhinestone font here, or any questions on Rhinestone fonts in general? Do they make a little more sense now? A little more understanding with them? And then one other thing that we didn't talk about with the Rhinestone fonts, and this will actually go with both of them, but there are 2-color Rhinestone fonts. So okay, Zebra. Oh, that's an SF version though. Okay, so SF version. Okay, so here is a 2-color Rhinestone font. So here you can see in the font preview, again, all these are uppercase letters, but the uppercase, see how it's the thinner one? That's going to be the inside fill, and the lowercase is going to be the outside fill. So some of these, we have like zebra patterns and stuff like that. those you have to use both. But what's cool about any of these like 2-color fonts that are set up like this, you actually have like 3 fonts in one. Because 1, you can type it out just like this, it looks cool. 2, you could just do all upper, and it would look like that. So you have that font too. And then 3, we have this button up top with the 2 in it, or it's just the 2. This is for our 2-color fonts, and it can be rhinestone or vector. So what this is going to do is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to type in upper or lower. You want to type in all upper or all lower, but it doesn't matter which one. But once you hit the 2, it's going to fill the other one inside of it or around it. So in this case, it filled the inside because I already had the outside. Since I have the inside here, if I hit the 2, it would fill the outside. And it's always going to be this orange color. Matt said hi. All right, so that's how these are going to work. Now, anytime you have a 2-color font like this, you want to apply the second color, and it's just going to lay it right on top. Hey, you can tell him, I know with his old age, getting old, his birthday, that it's hard to remember things at that age. But here we have our, once we have these both applied, that's when we would come in and hit the resize button. So you would just select everything and hit yes, and that's going to resize them all at the same time. If you have a 2-color font and you hit resize first and then hit 2, it's just going to give you an error. Okay, so any 2-color font with rhinestones, you need to hit the 2 first. And again, it's just always going to make it that orange fill. You can make it whatever colors you want. But once you add it, then we're going to hit resize and yes. All right, so that was the last part with our rhinestone fonts. Now, most of our vector fonts, those you're just going to be able to type whatever you want and resize it however you want. Whether it's ours or, any vector font is, pretty much the same. So if I type the word bling, if it's an impact font, it doesn't matter if I pull it, stretch it this way, stretch it this way. That's all going to cut as you see it. So that's where it's a little bit different with, a vector compared to a rhinestone. With the vectors, you can manipulate them pretty much however you want. With the rhinestone, you have to resize, keeping the height and width proportionate. Otherwise, it will not work correctly. So, again, with our vector fonts, they're 2 colors are going to work the same way. So let's see where those KOs are. So if I have the baseball KO, this is a 2-color font. We have the word shortstop. Again, and this is a KO. It doesn't actually say like 2-color, but the KOs are 2 colors. So you would just come and hit the 2, and it would automatically populate the other, half of our font. So this is the fill, this is the outside. Again, if I type it out this way, I can still hit the 2 and it'll add the outside around it. So it doesn't matter if you start upper or lowercase, but you don't want to do half of it upper, or like you don't want to do title case where one of it's like this, because sometimes that will lead to it not filling. See how it fills like the S a different color than that one there, so it kind of like throws it off. So always just type, if possible, in like all upper or all lower, and then you can just hit the 2 and it'll fill it out perfect. All right. So again, and with those two, you'll see a font preview. So if you see something like that, like this one here, where it has the outside and the inside, that's a 2-color. This one here, how it just has upper and a regular Arial font, that means I'd have to type in lowercase to actually see the font. So some of them are similar in that fact, but most of them should have like an upper, lower, or I'll show you in that preview there. How do you know if a Rhinestone font has numbers? So if you like purchase a pack, or it's just something that you already have on, installed, and you're not sure and you don't want to go back to the website, you can just type the numbers out. So you can just do 1 through, all the characters, and then if you select your font and they show up, that font has it. But maybe this one here, okay, that one has it. That one, most of these ones do. Okay, so this one doesn't, and it just shows these like boxes like that. That's your signal that it doesn't have numbers in it. When we're looking at a new font on the site, we're looking at the image. So this one here has uppercase only. It's a 2-color font, but it only has uppercase and numbers. So it doesn't have the lowercase, but it does have numbers. This one here, same thing, all uppercase, numbers, and a couple little symbols in there too. This one, upper and lower, but no numbers. All right, so that's how you'll, there's different ways to look, but this, a new font that we're purchasing, it's going to show you in the image here on this, if it's already installed and you just want to check, you just kind of click on type out the numbers and click on the font. All right, so let's go ahead and do this, and next we're going to get into our new type of fonts that are called like our superscripts. So we have a couple different styles of them. We have the ones that are actually called superscript, and then we have like our Halloween one. We have, I think, a Christmas one, but the superscript styles, what's cool about these is they're going to give you different options. Now most of them have different style tails with it. So if you hold shift and hit 1 through 0 up top, it will show you like different tail styles that are associated with the font. But what's really cool about these superscript is you can actually highlight a single letter, and underneath it now you'll see this little arrow that pops down, or it's like just an arrow down at the bottom, but it's pointing down. If you left click and hold that, it will show you alternative S's that you have in this font. So we have this style S, we have this style, or the original like this. So these superscript fonts are, it's one font, but each character has 2 or 3 different options for each letter. So it makes it really cool. You can, do a lot of different styles with it. So I can just select this middle one, and now you'll see that it just selects it just like that. So then I can select the O, and there's just 2 styles on this one. So, let's just stick with our first one. Then we get into the C's, 2 styles on this one. I like that look better. So we'll change that up. Our E just has the one option, so you can see how it doesn't have anything here. And then the R, maybe I want that. So I'm going to add a tail. So I'm going to keep the R just like that. All right. So this font is still together. It's not broken apart or anything like that yet. That's kind of the next step. We have a question: are Flutter and Flutter Elements separate fonts? So we do have a couple different Flutter. If it's Flutter and Flutter Elements, those are probably the same. But if it says like Flutter 2 and Flutter Elements, those might be a little bit different. I know we at one point had to edit the Flutter Elements one, so it might be listed like you'll see I have like Flutter script, Flutter element, and elements. Those are all three the exact same font. But then we do have Flutter 2 and Flutter 3. Alright. Now when we look at this font, you can see how some of these letters don't match up perfectly. But that's okay. That's when we're going to come to the Edit tab. And we're going to hit TS. Or sorry, we're not going to the Edit tab. We're going to come up top here to the Font tab. And we're going to hit B, the letter B. That is going to separate each one of these letters from each other. So they're still fonts, but they're all separate. So that's when I can come in and select this R and just move it over a little bit. And you can see how nicely those match up now. So next I still have the R selected. I'm going to select the E, and I'm just going to move that over just a tad to blend those in. Those look all good there. And then I might want to maybe move this S over just a little. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger. Whatever I want to do, I can edit that here too. So I'm going to move it down just a tad. And yes, you can resize. So if like, you know, you wanted the E to be a little bit smaller, you could do that too. Maybe just move it that way. And let's move this R back in, and we'll make that a touch smaller too. So you definitely have control of that. Alright, so our next step is adding a tail to our design. So we talked about this a little bit on Tuesday, just quickly. But to see all your different tails, and you can do it, to see all the tails, we're going to hold shift, and we're just going to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. And that's going to be all of our different tails. So at this point, you can hit the B. It'll break them all apart, and you can kind of move them around this way to see them. Or before you break it apart, you can hit the TS and pull them all across this way and kind of view them this way. Or we can even do the vertical, and it will list them out this way for us. Right, so these are all the different tails associated with our, you know, superscript. I think we're using 1 on this one. Oh, this is Flutter script. So next, these are all still all together. So this is where we can now hit the letter B. That's going to break apart each one. And then we just, you know, we're finding the tail we want. So if we want this style here, I'll go ahead and bring this up here. And then I'm going to resize my tail to kind of fit this wording here. So I might, you know, it might look something like that. And now look how nicely that fits. With the tails, there's sometimes you might have to squeeze them in this way to make them fit a little bit nicer. And you can see up top here how, you know, our characters don't always match up perfect. So I can come back down or kind of move that back over. And now that looks a lot nicer. So once I kind of have that tail situated in there, that's when I would come back, highlight everything, and click weld, and that's going to weld it all back together for me. So now this is just all back to one object. So if we zoom in, we kind of, you know, you might see a little area like this where, you know, it's not the smoothest transition in from the last letter to the tail. You can double click at that point and you'll see the nodes, which we can then just kind of delete out a couple of them, and that usually helps it like become a little bit smoother into the transition. And you have full control, so I could bring this down a little bit that way, maybe bring that in, and have, you know, change the effect just like that. So those, you know, those are our different, you know, Flutter scripts or, you know, our superscript fonts. We have a lot of different ones, but that's going to allow you to really customize, you know, how these look for you. So you can change the way, you know, all the characters, change it from different tails, and so on. Can you make a font live with a tail? So, not technically. Well, yes, technically, it's not going to look good. So what's going to happen? Because do you guys remember me talking about last class where, like, when we see a live template, if it's all typed in uppercase, we want it to stay all uppercase, because if we put like a lowercase y or g in it, it kind of skews the way it looks. That's kind of what the tail would do for us. So let's say I had a font like, just the word text. And we do soccer, and you can't edit it, like you can't move around the characters because they're already in an envelope, so you don't have the full ability to like customize it like you'd want to. So let's just say soccer, and our tail's like that, and I'll use superscript 5. I'll hit OK. So that one doesn't look too bad, but let's say if we go to superscript 1. So see how nothing lines up now? That's where we're going to have problems with like a live template with a tail in it. Because now I can't get into those single characters and edit them and change them around that way. So that's the bigger issue. So yeah, technically you can use a tail in a live text, but it's not going to edit like you want it to. We did have a question like, what if you have a word like this though? So this is a issue that comes up a lot. So let's say we have Jaguars. This is our font here, and let's go ahead and edit. We'll fix up some of these characters. I'm not going to go ahead and switch them all around, but let's just say we want our characters to look like this. All right. So we still want to break them all apart, and let's say this is the tail we want to use. So I can make this, go ahead and resize that, and let's make it so it doesn't go. And you can actually, like, if you double click into this, like I could pull this up this way too. So now we have this issue with the G that's overlapping with our tail. And it might look, and I like to change the colors when I'm doing something like this. So you can just kind of change the tail and the letter colors just so you can see the different layers, because sometimes it might look like this, but we need it, in front this way. So I broke all my characters apart, and I don't want to weld all these together yet, because that's not going to give me the look I want. But now we have this G overlapping with the tail. So if I were just to weld all these together now, my design's going to look like that, right? So the G is just completely inside the tail now, and that's, our design. We can probably understand what it's supposed to say, but, at the same time, we might just read it, we might not be able to tell that that's a G. So what we want to do here is create a boundary around our design. So we're just going to select the G, and I'm going to select contour and magic boundary, and right now it's set to 0.02. So I'm not clicking remove shapes behind, because I want to see the boundary that it's creating. And also, if I select remove shapes behind, it will automatically remove from all the shapes that are behind it. So you can see how the U and the A are also behind it. So it would affect those letters too. So by just selecting the boundary or the contour, it will just place a boundary around my design, this piece here, but not actually cut through it. So once you like the boundary that you have around it. So pretty much imagine this part as being white, and it's going to cut out of your design like that. But again, we're not going to cut it out of the letters. We just want to cut it out of the tail. So now I can select that boundary, hold shift, select the yellow tail behind, back minus front. Now that's been trimmed out of my tail. So now I can go ahead and highlight everything, weld it, and look how much better that looks. So if we do have characters that might drop into our tail like that, it's just breaking them all apart, adding a magic boundary around the outside. Remember, we're not going to hit remove shapes behind, but we're gonna, we just want to see it and then subtract it through. All right, so let's go over that one more time from the start. All right, so I have. All right, so we just typed out Jaguars. This is all one word. So the first thing we're gonna do, once we type it out, hit break apart. Now again, if you want to change, any of these styles around to the different options, you can, but we're going to put a tail under this, so I don't want this going on underneath it because it's going to really affect how my tail looks. So I don't want that option. But I might want to change, the U around to, again, that goes underneath, so it's not going to, we don't want that style. So we're just going to leave it as is, but just remember you have the ability to kind of go back and change that at this point. All right, so all these are broken apart. So once I break them apart, I'm going to just change, because I know that I'm going to work with the G. That's where my problem area is going to be. I'm just going to change the color of the G right now. Okay. So then it's just selecting the tail we want to use and sizing that up for our design. So let's I like to try to match it up here first. And then, I might have to pull it down a little bit this way, or even fully down that way. And also what you can do, you can rotate these tails. So I can maybe rotate it a little bit that way, so it lines up with everything a little bit nicer. So next, again, and you can, if it's easier to change the color of the tail at first too, feel free. But once we have these two set up here, it's coming over to your magic boundary, selecting that G. And you don't want to use you want to have contour check, because if you don't, remember this cavity will get completely removed. So now if I subtract that through, it's going to have a big gap inside. So if you like that look, that's fine. But if you want still a little piece inside there, that's when we set the contour. But you'll notice how I do not have remove shapes behind selected. So I'm going to select that piece there, our new boundary, hold shift, select the tail, back minus front. That just trims it through the tail only. Then I'm just highlighting everything, weld, and then I'm done. Can you resize the whole G with the contour applied to adjust? Yeah, so if this is what you're asking, once you have this here, if you wanted to resize that, you could resize both. You can't resize the contours outside of it, but you can resize like the entire letter with the boundary applied. Not sure, you probably won't be doing that, but this isn't a contour. So this isn't, you can't add to it. You'd have to delete it, and then if you want it bigger, you'd have to come back, adjust that to a bigger number, and then same steps and weld. Did you delete it by hitting boundary? No. So that's when we have our boundary there. You're selecting the boundary, holding shift, selecting the tail, back minus front. All right, so let's go ahead. Man, time is flying. 31:20. All right, so let's select this design now, and we'll go up into our mockup tab. All right, so next, so we kind of covered this a little bit on Wednesday, but the mockup tab is where you can create your quick products. So this is going to be the top section up top here, and then we have our mockup wizard section, and this gets you into like the templates with the different types of order forms. So the top section is just for like a quick mockup. It's pretty much going to have, if you have stones, it will show you the, simulate the stones. You can put a watermark on it if you want. But this is just a quick product. It's not going to really show much of your information, anything like that. It's just, if you, maybe for a website listing or a way to show your customer really quickly, here's the quick proof. Let me know if you want to change anything. And then if they approve that, that's when we can go into making more of like the order forms. So we'll select our design. Here we have all of our different drop downs. So mine's going to look probably different than yours just because I've added my own products. I've downloaded products from the site. So mine's going to look a little bit different. But if yours is defaulting, like you haven't added anything, you're going to have like men's, women's, TRW, kids, or boys, girls, and infants. So if you select women's, that's when you'll get all the different styles. You got front and back, but these are all going to be preloaded for you. So you'll have a V-neck, tank top, scoop, long sleeve, dry fit, and burnout. Those styles are all preloaded for you. And what's really cool about the preloaded t-shirts is they're all color changing. So let's say I wanted this on a women's tank top shirt front. We have our design selected. Now this is important when we're using the mock-ups. I'm going to have this one sized to 11.5. Let's actually go a little bit. Let's do 9.3. And then let's resize this one to 3.7. So with our different designs here, because of the way they're sized, that's how they're going to be reflected on your garment. So this 9.3 inch design, that's a pretty normal size, design for an adult t-shirt. So when I click the quick product, or my mock-up here, you can see that this Jaguar's design, fits pretty much in the middle of our t-shirt here, and it's sized almost to, it's a good size on the t-shirt. Also, what I was saying at this point, this is where Matt says hi again. So this is where you can, and I just added this just so you can see it, but this is where you can select the t-shirt and change it to all these different colors. So all of our t-shirts are going to be preloaded as color changing t-shirts. Now, going back to our page one here, this Jaguar, same design, but this one's only 3.7 inches wide. So if I select my tank top now, see how small it looks on my t-shirt? That's because the size that this started out with was 3.7. So 3.7 inches on an adult t-shirt, that's how my design's pretty much going to look on it. Now that doesn't mean if I made the mistake and didn't realize it was sized so small, I can still grab this and resize it on this page and, fit it wherever or however I want on this t-shirt. All right. So just keep that in mind. If you're, with your vector design, with your rhinestones, you can't really resize it. With your vectors, you can. So if you make the mistake where you're working on it and it was like 5 inches, but you actually wanted it 12, you can resize it at any point to kind of show that. But when you start it, at this point, whatever size it's set out when you hit the mock-up button, that's how it's going to pull it in, referencing to like your garment. All right. So we had a question about changing the t-shirt color. All right, and I want to get into this a little bit more. And I'm going to put a background color on it just so we can see how this looks. But when I try to relocate the design, it seems the shirt moves instead. Easiest way to relocate. All right, so what's probably happening is you're trying to draw a box around your design, but you're clicking on the t-shirt and it's going like that. What you need to do is draw a box. Like I just put this one here, so do the same thing. But if I have my design like this, you need to draw a box starting outside of the t-shirt and just highlight your design. If you try to draw a box on your t-shirt, it's just going to grab that and move it. All right. Now going back to the t-shirt colors. All right, so when we have a t-shirt like this, you see how we have like the wrinkles here at the bottom, and we have that like, you know, shadow effect going on? How it actually looks like this is, you know, this was actually being worn when we took the picture for it. It's not just like a vector of a t-shirt. It's a, you know, when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, that's an actual tank top. All right, so if I switch this to a black t-shirt, and you can switch the color by clicking literally on any color palette you want. Okay, so it's not, there's no like secret button or anything. You just literally click any color you want and it'll change it to that color. Alright, but when I change this to black, do you notice how this t-shirt does look more like just like a cutout or a silhouette of a t-shirt, and it doesn't have that shadow effect anymore? Do we know how to fix that issue? So to change this or fix this, we have a left and a right click. So when I select the white, again, you see how we have all those shadow effects. When I click on the black now, those are gone. So to be able to see the shadow effects, because we have a dark color now or black, we need to right click a lighter color. So white or like a light gray will do it too. Sometimes white can be too bright, so I kind of sometimes go with like a lighter gray. But you see how we see the shadow effect now, how it brings it back to like looking like a actual t-shirt now instead of just something like this. So when we right click a lighter color, that's the difference we're going to get with our mock-ups. So let's say now, because I clicked the lighter color with our design here, so if I right click white and then I decide to left click to go back to white, see how bad my t-shirt looks again here? How it's just like a vector cutout or silhouette. So what am I going to have to do to fix this look now? Exactly. We're going to right click a darker color. So when I right click the black, you can see how we get that shadow effect back in. Now you can right click any color. So if I right click this like magenta or purple, you'll actually see shades of that in your design. So if I right click the blue, you can see different shades of that. You know, it's a cool effect, but most t-shirts aren't going to have that effect, so you want to be careful with it. That's why, you know, I usually will make the contrasting color, the right click, either black, white, or like a gray. Because if you start using like red, you know, you get little shades like that. Right, so any of our color changing options, that's how you can, change the colors and make sure it stands out like it's supposed to. Where do we find mockups, TRW cells? If you just type mockup in the search, you should see all of our different mockups. Somewhere we actually have some free items on there too, but we have like the Bella, like the top one here where it says like the Bella canvas. Those you'd have to purchase, and then we have some like specialty items too. Yeah, the red definitely almost makes that look pink. But just keep in mind too, any item that you want, you can use the mockup creator to bring that item and add it into your mockup collection. So in my drop down, when I have this cups and mugs, all these like Arctic tumblers and Black Yeti, I brought those in manually. Alright, so I don't know if we're going to get mockup creator, might be Tuesday, because we still need to go through this part a little bit. But just keep that in mind. Yeah, they're on the site. It's going to save you time because they're already done, but you can literally bring in any item you want for free. All right, so our next section below, again, so that first one, these images that look like this, these are meant for just like to quickly show your customer, hey, with the glitter, and you can change this to glitter, with the glitter, red vinyl on a white tank top, this is how your design's, pretty much going to be laid out for you. All right, perfect. Send me the order form. All right, so now we can get back to our design here. Let's, make it red glitter. And now I can get into the order form, one product. All right, so we're going to go through the advanced setting. The basic is just a couple of the options, but the advanced will show us all the options. So just for this case, we're going to select advanced. Normally I just do basic, but I just want to show you all the options that the advanced offers. But every option that it shows in here, we can pretty much change out once the basic one is completed anyway. So that's why I usually stick with basic, but either way, we'll run through this. We don't have stones, so I don't need to check that. If I wanted my watermark, I can check that. I can always add my watermark at the end with this button here anyways, so I usually don't really check that one there. So I have my order form, one product selected, advanced setting, launch mockup wizard. So I just click that button right there in the middle. So the first thing it's going to ask us pretty much is just like the other, like the drop down on the first one, it's going to ask us what type of apparel, select product one. So it's going to be that same list of your drop down. So you can go to women's, tank top, front. All right. It's going to say the name of the item you have here. But if you want to change this to, Gildan's women tank top, or if you just want to change it to tank top shirt front, you can. But I'm just going to leave that and hit OK. And next it's going to say select your design for women's tank top shirt front and click OK. So now it's asking to select design one. So I'm going to highlight the Jaguars design because that's what I want and hit OK. And next it's going to ask us the price. So all these little things that it's asking us, does that change the name permanently? No, that won't change anything permanently. So all these little things that it's asking us, this is because we're in the advanced setting. If we weren't, it would pretty much ask us what type of garment we wanted to use and to select the design. So when we highlighted the Jaguar, so those two things. Everything else, like the price and everything like that, would just be generic. But like I said, we can still change that manually. So here it's just asking us beforehand what we want to price everything at. So let's say, I'm doing these tank tops for 22 bucks each. So I'll hit OK. And once it generates all that information, it's going to create my mock-up for me. Now again, my order form, keep this in mind, I've customized this to look different. So yours is not going to look exactly like mine in this image here. All right, but it would so it would pretty much like give you the same layout here that you have for your t-shirt, stuff like that, whatever price point you put in. So we'll have some similar stuff, but this is how it's going to look now. So this is the order form that you could then send to them where they could fill everything out for you. But like I said, everything on here you can still customize. So if you were wrong on the price, you know what, these were actually supposed to be, I told them it would be $20. I can change that here. Any of these options, if I'm not offering a 3X or 2X, or you know, maybe I want to change this to plus $2, I can change all that in here. Are you guys having issues hearing me? Okay. Alright. Alright, cool. So that's, you know, that's more of the order form product. You know, that's the difference between these two, the quick product versus the order form. This is going to be, you know, the last thing we'll probably send them where they can fill everything out. The quick product is just something that you might list on your website, or a quick proof to kind of make sure your customer, that's what they're looking for. All right, so any questions on our mock-ups? Yeah, so we had a question about the changing the shirts again. No problem. So what we were saying is, when we have a t-shirt like this, how we have the effects. Now these are going to be the t-shirts that we bring in that are already preset for you. But how they have the shadow effects and the different looks. Depending on your t-shirt, they're all going to start as like white garments. So because they start as a white garment, we right click like black or a really dark gray to give those shadow effects, to help like show those shadow effects, to make it look like a real t-shirt. So it's pretty much a contrasting color. So if I were to change this tank top to black, well, now we're contrasting black with black, so it just looks like a very dark, you know, silhouette of our garment that we're using. So once we do that, we want to have a contrasting color of like white or dark gray. That way, when we right click any of these colors, you'll actually see that shadow effect again, and it's going to help it look like a more natural t-shirt than just like a silhouette or a cutout. And now, if you were to go back to white, you can see how now it's harder to see. Like if it's white on white, it looks, you know, pretty, you know, it's just like a white silhouette of a tank top. It doesn't show you the details. It doesn't look as good. So that's when we'd have to right click black to help, you know, show the difference, or to show those shadow effects again. Yeah, and then we had a question about changing our pricing here. So with these, this is just a text field here. Is this on any shirt or just color changing? So it will kind of bring in that effect with most, if you add it yourself too. So just keep that in mind. If it's something you created or the color changing ones, they can still have that left and right click. So if you bring something in and it doesn't, like if it's like a black t-shirt, well, first of all, if you're bringing it in, it has to start as a white garment to be a color changing t-shirt. If you're just bringing in like blue Nike sweater, you're not going to be able to change the color to that. So you don't really have to worry about the left and right click. It's just if it's a color changing shirt that you'll probably have to worry about that left and right click. But it can still be on garments that you brought in yourself. But any of these sizing and stuff like that, like some of us will charge more for the bigger shirts. So you can see how it went outside my area a little bit. But you can just highlight that and bring the text field down just a little bit. And then that way it fits back in here. But you can completely, edit all the sizing. So it might be, plus $1, plus, as long as it's over 2x, it's plus $2. Again, I could just highlight that section and make it just a tad bit smaller. And this box itself, when you click on it, like if you click on one of the lines, you'll notice up top here it has this row and columns. So this, let's say I don't offer, I only offer small through XL. I can get rid of those 2 rows and then come back and delete my 3X out, my 2, not all that, my 2X out, get rid of my boxes here, and then I can either move everything up into this area, or I could have stretched everything down a little bit too. Probably want to move that back up a little bit closer. But you can, you can change the effects on that too. All right. So I think that's a probably pretty good place to where do we write our own company? All right, so we'll finish with that stuff real quick. So, and then we'll that'll be a good place to end it. So underneath this area we have watermarks and logo. So you can see when I create this mock-up how it has all my information here. That's going to be this little window here. So you can see how mine's set to TRW. Yours is probably going to say description if you've never changed it before. All right, so yours might look like something like that. To get all of our information to populate here, we're going to left click this little pencil and it's going to pop up with this window right here. So click on the one that says description and that will help show, it'll already generate some of the information for you, but it'll kind of go over what you need to type where. So description is just, abbreviation. It can be your whole company name, whatever you want it to say. I just typed in TRW. But I could have typed, the Rhinestone World. I could type my whole business name, whatever I want it to. So I'll just, for this sake, since I already have the TRW, I'll do the Rhinestone World. So next is my watermark text. So my watermark is going to lay on top of my images when I want to protect them. So this could be my website. This could be just my company name, anything that, some people want their website so it brings, they'll see it on there and be like, oh, the rhinestoneworld.com, let me go check that out. Or they'll just put their business name because then you can just Google search their business name, whatever you want to do. Next, we have the transparency. So that's how the watermark's going to show up on your image. 80 is pretty much a good number, so just leave that there. That's why I said just click that description because it'll populate stuff like that for us. I tried to do this, but needed logo path. Does the logo need to be transparent? No, so the logo has nothing to do with the transparency. The logo is just like, it can be a vector, it can be an image, but this little window here will pop up a screen like this, and it's going to select your logo file. So just save your logo anywhere on your computer. It might be saved to your desktop, documents, wherever you save it. So ours, I could go to my Z drive, go to TRW logos, web, and then, you know, any logo I want, I can select that logo. I would save your logo as like a PNG or JPEG if possible, but you can save as like, it can actually still be like read as like a vector file if you want. But I like to save them as an image. So then you'll see the path where that logo is from. So mine's like company files, the Rhinestone World marketing, graphics, so and so. So it's a long path. Yours might just say, you know, C drive, desktop, logo, whatever the logo name is, or documents, your logo. All right, the business name, same. So I'm just going to copy that, but I'll just put some spacing in there. Website, that's my Watermark Text, so I'm just going to copy and paste that. Phone number, email. So, you know, hopefully we have all this stuff. If not, just, you might have to even just write info@rhinestoneworld.com, like your street address. If you're working from home and you don't want to give that out, just type a character in there, you know, just something like that. Same with your city, state, and zip. You can just do something like that just as a placeholder, and we can, it has to have something in there. So once we fill everything out, we click add. All right, so if we do not hit add, it won't drop this down here. All right, so now you can see the Rhinestone World, it's under the two I already have. So since I have that one selected, you can see the blue line. I'm going to move that up to the top. That's going to default to this option now. You shouldn't really have multiple ones in here unless you have a couple different companies, which we probably are just, you know, have the one. But I would recommend don't delete out the description one, because if something ever happens or you have to redo it, this kind of gives us the base for what we want to put where. And like to remember that the transparency is like 80 and stuff like that. So once we move everything around, now remember, first thing we did, we clicked add, then we moved it up, and then the last one is making sure we hit, yeah, it won't let you add without a logo path either. So again, that can just be, you know, you can just write your name in a text style you like and save it as a PNG and use that. So it doesn't have to, if you don't have like an actual logo, it can just be, just take an image, you know, write your name out in a nice font that you like and copy that as an image, or save it as an image like a PNG or JPEG. But afterwards, we want to make sure we hit save. And then when we go to our mockups now, you'll see, once you hit save, you'll see your, and you moved it to the top, you'll see that there. Otherwise, if you didn't move it to the top, you'll have to hit drop down each time to select the one you want to use. But now when you create a mockup using this bottom section here, where you see the Rhinestone World, the phone number, and all that information is automatically going to populate. So checks payable to the Rhinestone World. The wood background, I was messing with a power clip, so that's just power clipped inside there. We'll go in, if we have time, we'll cover that. That's a little bit more advanced. But Karen, I think you probably have the training series of when we did that. So I think because I think you've gone through almost all, or to all those too. So that's when we did it in one of the training series. But I'll try to find that for you and let you know. But that's just a power clip. So if you know anything with the power clip, all I did was Google that wood background and then power clipped it inside my box. Alright, so we'll finish there today, but Tuesday, I'll have it up either today or Monday, but just plan on Tuesday, probably like around 7 again. We're going to do part 4. So we'll do the mock-up creator. So we'll show you how to bring in your items, and then we'll cover the magic tab, and that should cover most of the wizard's like core features. All right. But if you guys want to see, I want to know how to get a Hannibal Lecter mask so I can use it in a design when you have time. Yeah, Karen, just shoot us an email, and you can just mark it for Sean, and they'll send it to me. But yeah, just let me know what you're looking for. All right. The next class it's gonna be Tuesday night, so it'll be part 4. 1 and 2 are listed on YouTube right now. 3 I'm gonna get up today. I should have it up today. At least on YouTube. It might not have the link on the back end, but if you just and someone said week 8 for the training series was when we did this background, so thank you for that. Did you put up the link for class 4? Not yet. So that one, I was still talking to Matt today about when he was doing trainings for next week, so I didn't want to overlap. So we'll do that. I'll have it up either today or Monday for the training on Tuesday, but just plan on it being around 7 Tuesday evening. It doesn't bother him to. Yeah, maybe I should schedule it for Monday. No, I don't. I wouldn't want to take that live from you guys. So those are really informational. So, but maybe next time he's doing something a little bit smaller, I'll just go live over his. All right, guys. Well, you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for coming. This one will get up, hopefully, as long as there's no issues with the video rendering, we should be able to get that up today. And then plan on Tuesday next week. And then we're not doing a training series next week either, so we'll probably have another freebie in there like Thursday or Friday as well too. So just look out for those ones. But next week we're going to cover pretty much what we have left that I can think of is the mock-up creator. We did place and fill, we did text effects, we did mock-ups. There could be some tabs in here that we might need to go through too. So, we might have a part 5, so we'll see. And these ones take a little time too, so there might be a part 5, but definitely part 4 will be Tuesday evening. No, we haven't done the Magic tab yet. Magic tab and Mockup Creator are the 2 that I was thinking about already for Tuesday, but I don't think we've really gone through the Edit tab much. So I wanna cover that a little too. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do the Magic tab. We haven't really even. The only thing we even touched on this was the stone outline on Wednesday, and that was just to quickly add rhinestones around that design. So we'll go over all those again. All right, guys, we have a great weekend. Like I said, part 1 and 2 are already listed. The free design for today has been updated too, so make sure you go get that. And then I'm pretty sure the sale, unless Matt said something on that live that I missed, I'm pretty sure that sale's wrapping up today, Matt's birthday sale at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't got anything you still want to, make sure you go get it in the next hour, because that sale will be coming down today. I think they're going back to the reopening sale, so there's still going to be some discounts, but they're not going to be anywhere close to the one that's going on now. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Okay, someone said he did say it's still active because he's adding the reflectives. Okay, so I'm not sure when that's going to come down, but just he'll probably make an announcement, or it'll be on the site if anything changed, but I think that's coming down around 3. All right, guys.